Yo, I'm Bob, totally blind since birth into Star Wars, talking about Season 2, Episode 8 of The Bad Batch on Disney+. Plus. This one's Truth and Consequences, 24th episode of the show overall. Spoilers ahead, watch it before listening to my thoughts. Jumping right in, and you were warned. So, the conclusion to this two-part political thriller in The Bad Batch has got to be one of my all-time favorite episodes of anything Star Wars. I really liked the two-part arc as a whole. Really glad to have been able to watch it back to back. I would say these two plus Tribe and Solitary Clone, all of these episodes are among my favorites in the entire series so far. Quite a few things I liked about this episode. I loved seeing the Bad Batch going to Coruscant. This is a really interesting step for Omega into a larger world, to paraphrase Obi-Wan Kenobi. She is sneaking behind enemy lines. It really reminded me of Shadows of the Empire from Star Wars Legends, when Luke, Lando, and Dash had to sneak onto Coruscant to get to Princess Leia when she was in Prince Shizor's palace. I love it when our heroes sneak into bad guy territory, and Coruscant is as bad as it gets right now in the Star Wars timeline when we see the Bad Batch. So I liked seeing the return of Senator Halle Bertoni from the Clone Wars. I was not expecting her to show up at all in this episode. I really did love the episodes which featured her in the Clone Wars. She featured in a really important three-parter that dealt with the continuation of funding for the clone troopers. You know, she represents the financial dealings of Camino and the Senate. So we saw her in Heroes on Both Sides, Pursuit of Peace, and Senate Murders. Was not expecting to see her again. I loved seeing Bale as well. He tells Chuchi that she needs to follow the money. And if anybody knows what had happened to that Kaminoan funding, it would be Bertoni. So she does confirm that Rampart diverted funding. So they're going to need concrete evidence. So we get this really awesome stealth mission aboard Rampart's Venator class Star Destroyer, because, of course, he had saved that footage in the command log. So yeah, we get a really cool blaster shootout there. They get the information they need. I also liked how Omega was tagging along with Chuchi in this episode. She learns about the Senate, and when they go into the the Senate chamber, you hear this really, at least it sounded to me, like a really noble rendition of Emperor Palpatine's theme. At least that's what it sounded like to me when Chuchi was explaining how the Senate worked and what she did in the Senate. Of course, my favorite part of the episode was toward the end, when Rampart thinks he's won the day. They're just about to pass that defense recruitment bill, but Chuchi calls him out for what he is. Omega delivers her the information, and everybody in the Senate gets to see the Star Destroyers firing on Camino. And best part of the episode, in my opinion, was when we saw Palpatine rising up from the depths in his pod. Whenever Sidious shows up in anything Star Wars, I will watch it quite a few times. He's always been one of my favorite bad guys. I will say he ties with Vader in terms of favorite Sith Lords. I love these two whenever they're on screen. Of course, you have Ian McDiarmid voicing Palpatine. And of course, they play right into his hands. He does the fear-mongering thing. He uses Rampart as the fall guy. Says, oh yeah, Rampart was behind everything. And this is why we really need to pass this bill, and we're going to usher in the era of the Imperial Stormtrooper. So, of course, they played right into Palpatine's hands, crafty Darth Sidious. And I can't wait to see what happens to the clones next, because Palpatine is blaming the clones for blindly following Rampart. Of course, that's what they were created to do. Now that he doesn't need them anymore, he's done with them. As Palpatine tends to do with his cannon fodder when he's done with them, he just disposes of them. So I don't think it's looking good for the clone troopers. And of course, I was not expecting Echo to at least for now leave the Bad Batch, and that's exactly what he does at the end of the episode. He feels that he needs to help his brothers out there in the field. He needs to do whatever he can to make sure that they survive the ordeal. So he goes with Rex, and it was a really touching scene at the end of the episode. I loved the acting in the episode as well. As I said, loved Ian McDermott. I loved how emotional Michelle Ann got at the end of the episode there. Of course, D. Bradley Baker's firing on all cylinders. You had Jameelah McMillan back as Halle Bertoni. You had Phil Lamar as Bale. You had Jennifer Hale as Chuchi. Just a really fun, really tense episode. And I would give it an 11 out of 10 if I could. I cannot wait to see more of these kinds of stories in the Bad Batch. Looking forward to seeing what happens to the clones. And I guess that'll do for this Star Wars episode discussion. Next time we're going to be talking about The Crossing, so be here for that, and may the Force be with you.